The parasha of today is called Parasha Nitzavim, and I give it a little bit of title, combine it together, since we are going to be having Rosh Hashanah, which is Yom Torah, tomorrow. So I call it Parasha Nitzavim and Rosh Hashanah, because they are all intertwined. This parasha is for Rosh Hashanah because Rosh Hashanah is going to be tomorrow. So, what is the meaning of Nitzavim? Nitzavim means standing. The people that are standing before the Holy One, as they are going to do what? They are going to re-establish the covenant or redo the covenant. Our reading this week contains an extraordinary passage, one which is very relevant for the upcoming high holidays. Our parasha open. You are standing today, all of you, before Adonai, your Elohim. Rabbi Yisaka Shlomo of Czechoslovakia writes, I was lying in bed last night thinking about this verse in connection with the Midrash that comments on the verse in the book of Shemot, chapter 3, verse 14. I shall be as I shall be, says the Midrash. I shall be for the individual and I shall be for the many. This teaches, Rabbi Shlomo continued, that Adonai relates differently to individual than he does to the nation as a whole. Every individual has Beshirah, which is free will, and Adonai relates to each individual based on the choices he makes, or based on the choices you make. In contrast, the nations as a whole has no free choice. Rather, Adonai will reign over us no matter what. What is Rabbi Shlomo trying to say? He's telling us here, my people, that you as an individual has a free will. That the Holy One deal with you according to your choice. The Holy One deals with me according to my choice. But as a whole, as a nation, as a country, as Israel, there is no free will. Either we like it or not, Adonai will reign over us. Because that was the agreement that we had from Mount Sinai. At Sinai, the Holy One said, this is the Torah. And what did we say? We said, we will do and we will obey. We will obey and we will do everything that you said we are going to do it. No exception. That was the agreement. As a nation, as a people, as a country, as Israel, there is no free choice. There is no free will. Either we like it or not. Either you like it or not. Adonai will reign over us. But as an individual, there is a choice you can make. Either you serve him or you don't serve him. It's your choice. It's not my choice. You choose. He said, I presented before you life or death. Choose one. But I advise you, as your creator, to choose life. For life is good. The rabbi continues. The word today connotes eternity. As Midrash Teshumah comments on the verse. Devarim, Deuteronomy chapter 26, verse 16. Today, Adonai, your Elohim, commands you. The commandment should be what should be new in your eyes as if they were given today. In other words, the Torah was not given once. It is given over and over again for all eternity. Our verse, therefore, means for all eternity, you are standing before Adonai, your Elohim. Why is this so? Because I am speaking to you, all of you. In other words, the Torah is not given once. Because the people think that the Torah was given on Mount Sinai, and so that is the end. No, the Torah is eternity. He said, for those, you see, is the word that Moshe used. Understand? He said, those that are standing. What is that word? Present continuous. You are not just, you didn't just stand. He said standing. Present continuous tense. It continues. He said, because for the entire of your life, you will be standing before the Lord your God. For the rest of eternity, the Torah is going to be given to you anew again. All over again. As some people will come and tell us that, the Torah is what? Is the Old Testament. It is old. Don't do it. Don't listen to it. And we have a new one now, which is for you to keep. No. The Torah is never old. It's given all over again. It's present, continuous. You are standing. I am standing. We are standing before the Lord our God for the rest of eternity. Because the commandment or the covenant is eternal covenant. It is not a covenant that it is done with. No. He said, it is for you and for me. He said, and even for those who are not here. What does that mean for those who are not here? You, your wife, your children, your maidservant, and everybody, everything that is included here, you will continue to stand before the Lord your God. And with those who are not here, what does that mean? That means with the future generation that are not yet born, understanding that the Holy One, blessed be He, has created all souls that is going to occupy, that will ever come upon the planet. He knows them all. So those souls that have not pushed on, that has not put on flesh, He knows them. They're already there. That covenant they're included in it. It's not just you. It's not just me. It's not just us that are here with our descendants that we don't even know. But the Holy One, blessed be He knows them already. They're included there. Because we pass down our DNA through them. The covenant is for all eternity until the new world will come. Until the Holy One will come with the Messiah. Moshe gathered the nation of Israel together and described to them a truly unforgivable sin. It is so terrible that Adonai will not be willing to forgive him, but Adonai's anger and jealousy will kindle against him. What is this sin? What is this sin? He said, I am gathering you all before the Holy One. To do what? To reenact this covenant. To re-enter again. Refresh again. To refresh. It's the same covenant. It's not giving them another, they're not coming into an oath in another one. No, it's the same one that was given on Mount Sinai. Let us renew it again. It is a renewal. Let's renew this covenant of the Lord our God as all of you are standing before the Lord your God this day. And he's saying now that in Deuteronomy chapter 29 verse 19, that is a particular sin that the Holy One will not be willing to forgive. It is so terrible that he is not willing to forgive him or her that commits such a sin, that Adonai, the Lord our God, in his anger and jealousy, will kindle against such a person, either he or she. What is this great crime? What is this great iniquity? What is this great sin that the Holy One will not be willing to forgive? What could a person do that is so terrible and degraded that is so certain to arouse divine anger, divine indignation, divine wrath, rather than forgiveness? The answer describes something so simple that at first glance we may not understand why it is so wrong. God, through Moshe, made a covenant with Israel that they will not follow idols or immoral practices of idolaters. A covenant that we are sworn to follow. But then the Torah describes an individual. Listen now, it's very important, please. But then, after that, the Torah describes an individual, a family, or a tribe that is drawn to idolatry. I read Deuteronomy chapter 29, verse 18. And when he hear the word of this cause, he will bless himself in his heart, saying, I have peace, as I follow the counsel of my own heart, adding the water upon the dry. I repeat again, Devarim chapter 29, verse 18. And when he hears the word of this cause, he will bless himself in his heart, saying, I will have peace, as I follow the counsel of my own heart, adding water upon the dry. What does that mean? Adding salt upon an injury. What it is that arose the divine anger? Simply that it lay back instead of trying to improve. I have peace. I can continue misbehaving and nothing bad will happen. That is what the man is saying, or that is what the woman is saying. He's saying that I don't care. I don't give a damn. I will continue in my what? In my iniquity. I will continue in my sin. I will continue in the evil that I am doing. And so therefore, let God continue to bless me. I don't care. You see, what is going on in the world, instead of him or instead of her to do what? To improve in a better way. To do what is good. To do what is fine. But he said, no, that doesn't concern me. What concerns me is that I will continue in my iniquity. I will continue in my sin. And I don't give a damn of whatsoever you think about me. I'm not interested. As I said, may we not understand why that's so horrible. Isn't the actual sin what matters? Why is a person like a death-seeker attitude more worthy of divine wrath than serving idol? He's giving a comparison here. Why should my attitude or my action be more evil? My carelessness, my laziness to do what is right, be more evil than serving idol. Why? Why is it that my actual action is even more dangerous than me serving an idol? To be drawn to idolatry or any form of misbehavior is to be overwhelmed by a desire. We are human. We want things that we are not supposed to have. Whether power, tempting food, someone else's money, wealth, fame, or forbidden relationship. And sadly, we sometimes give in to this temptation. God knows we are human and can forgive us if we turn back, if we make teshuvah, if we return back to Him. The Holy One is willing to forgive us. If we sincerely express regret and commit to doing better, He is going to forgive us. But not so to this person, but not so to this man, or not so to this woman who said in his heart, I'm going to have peace. I'm going to do whatsoever I want. I don't give a damn. My action is what I'm going to do. That negativity is what I'm going to do. There is no, in this case, there is no longer indifference between a sin that you knowingly do or the sin that you did unknowingly. This man had, according to what our prophet said, he said their heart is sealed with iron. They don't care. He is saying in his heart that he is going to have peace. He is self-satisfied with his own shortcoming. He doesn't care about any others. He's pleased with his sin. Rashi explained, What the verse means by adding the water upon the dry is like adding salt upon an injury. When the person is indifferent to his own wrongdoing, there is no longer any distinction between inadvertent error and deliberate sin. Once he is willing to cautiously do the sin deliberately, the fact that today he did it by mistake no longer makes his behavior easier to forgive. That's what he's saying. This thought applies to every person, no matter he or her spiritual level. We cannot be satisfied with where we are. We must look at our own action and try to do better. When a person is indifferent to their wrongdoing, when a person is indifferent to their crime, when a person is indifferent to their sin, when a person is indifferent with the wrong attitude that you have, I don't care. I can do whatever I want to do. This is a free world. We are in the 21st century. Who are you to tell me that I am wrong? Who are you to point out my sin? The only thing that I want is to preach to me and tell me about only prosperity. Hey, prosperity, prosperity. Only don't tell me my sin. No. Because when you say the truth, nobody comes. Everybody disappears, everybody run. But the truth is very bitter. Only tell them what they in the book of Revelation, it says, at the end time, men will run to and fro, looking for where itchy ears, what they want to hear. The pastors have to be telling them what they want to hear. Oh, you know what? Continue in your sin. It is prosperity. You are going to be blessed and be blessed more. The only thing that you have to do is to bring more money into the church. The pastors will be flying in private jets, and the people will be suffering. The pastor will be having Rolex. I'm not saying is anything wrong about that. No, the rabbi having big houses or big things. I'm not saying is wrong. No, but at what extent? That's the question. When your members are suffering, when your member cannot wear clothes, they don't even have bread, they don't even have shoe, and you are living in some mansions, and you are flying some private jet, and you tell me that is the blessing of God, then you must be sick. You must have some. Maybe you need some doctors to check your brain, because that is not what the Torah said. The Torah is saying that you have to take care of your people, take care of the community, not building some mansions, and your people cannot even have a shelter upon their head. They can't even eat, and you are telling me that God is telling you to go and buy a private jet. Then I need to question that God. When you become indifferent in what you are doing, when your heart is sealed with iron, when you continue to commit crime and you say hallelujah, hallelujah, then the Torah says that the Holy One will be so wrathful against such a person, either a man or a woman. For this commandment that I command you today, it is not hidden from you, and it is not distant. Deuteronomy chapter 30, verse 11. I repeat. For this commandment that I command you today, it is not hidden from you, and it is not distant. It's not far away. It is not a thing that the Holy One did not give us a commandment that we cannot do. No. If God give us a commandment, if God give us the Torah, and He knows that we cannot do it, then He's a wicked God. But God is not wicked. He knows that we can do it. That is why He gives it to us in the first place. He knows that it is in our power that we can be able to do this. That is why He gave us this Torah, this guidance to guide us, to lead us in the path of justice, in the path of righteousness, in the path of life. So therefore, we as individuals must try our best to do what is good. As the new year is coming, Rosh Hashanah is coming in, Yom Torah is coming. As you live the life, as you enter Yom Torah, that is how you are going to do the rest of the year. We have to come with our life, with soberness, asking God for forgiveness in any form of shape. We might have been like this man or like this woman who, in his heart or in her heart, say, I don't care, I do whatever I want to do. This is a free world. Please, let us come before the Holy One and ask Him for forgiveness. We can do better. We can improve. He told Cain, he said, sin is at the door. Wash. The Holy One warned him. He told him, look at, sin is at the door, and his desire is to have you. Be careful. You can do good. You can improve your way. We can improve. We are better than this. We can grow. As we enter into the new year, we have to dedicate our life more to the life of the Torah, to the mitzvot, to the commandments, for us to do what is right and what is just, for us to help our brothers, for us to be kind, to be loving. Rabbi Moshe ben Nachman Ramban writes that this refers to the mitzvah of Teshuvah. That is Devarim chapter 30 verse 11. Rabbi Zeruel Shlita observed that many people find Teshuvah difficult. We all feel as if we're generally doing what is right. Moreover, our sages teach us that we should approach the day of judgment with the confidence that we will emerge vindicated and triumphant. Nevertheless, the rabbi writes, if we understood the depth of Adonai's judgment, we would not be so complacent. Who can claim that he has not offended his wife or his spouse or a husband, a family, a friend, neighbor or co-worker, etc. During the year, do we realize the seriousness of this sin? Do we repent for it properly? To observe Teshuvah is difficult. People think that, Teshuvah is for me because I did something wrong against my brother. I just go to God and say, God, please forgive me of my sin. I've done something wrong. And that is it. No, that is not real Teshuvah. Well, what is the meaning of Teshuvah? Teshuvah means coming back, returning unto God. To return to your Father. To return to your Creator. To return to Him who made you in His image. Teshuvah is for you to go and ask forgiveness, first of all, from that man or from that woman that you have wronged. To ask forgiveness from your wife or from your husband that you have wronged. To have forgiveness from your family member that you have wronged. To seek forgiveness from your friend that you have wronged. Or the neighbors or that co-worker that you did something wrong against. You go to them first and you ask forgiveness from them. And after that, you go to God and seek forgiveness. And then you are forgiven. You just don't go to God and say, God, forgive me, and that is it. No. What about that man, that woman that is still bitter against you in his or her heart? Teshuvah has its steps. The first step for you to regret your action, to regret what you did, that what I did is wrong, what I did is not good. Then you go to and redress the wrong. Making what is wrong, making it right. Now, how do we do that? You go to the person that you have wronged. Seek forgiveness. Please forgive me for my wrongdoing. Please forgive me for one thing or the other that I've done against you. I am sorry. Please, it will not repeat itself again. I am very deeply sorry. And sincerely that you mean it. Not just to say, hey, I'm sorry, and you go back again and repeat the same thing. No. Sincerely sorry out of your soul, out of your heart, begging for forgiveness. And when that person forgives you, then you go to God, to the Holy One, and seek forgiveness. Remembering that you have sinned against the image of God. It doesn't matter if it's a child of God or not. Remembering that we are all made in the image of Elohim. So when she forgive you, then you go to the Almighty and seek for forgiveness. And that is the completion of the circle of Teshuvah. Moreover, we forget that appeasing those we have offended is only the first step. We still must appease Adonai when we offend his loved one. The Gemara relates that a great sage was severely punished because he came home late from yeshiva and caused his wife to shed one tear as she sat by the window watching for him. She would not have wanted him to be punished, but Adonai does not tolerate even a small show of insensitivity from a person of stature. There's a Gemara about a sage, a very righteous man. He went to the yeshiva to study, to read, to elaborate more and more about the Torah. But remember, the same Torah said there is a time for everything. You cannot mix your family life with that of the Torah. There's a time to dedicate to the Almighty, and there's a time to dedicate for your family. God made that very, very clear. There's a time for you and your wife and your children, and there's a time for you, before you, personal relationship between you and your God. You don't mix them together. But this sage makes them together. He said to him, it's not that he did it intentionally, but it was in his mind, I am studying the Torah. I can stay in the yeshiva as long as I want. But remember, you have your wife at home. You have a responsibility at home. You have your wife, your family, and responsibility. You have other responsibility to take care of. Not only in yeshiva. Thereby, his wife was just sitting down, waiting for him, waiting. And he's not coming. She begins to cry. And God will not accept that. Because the level of this man, the level of his righteousness is above what he's doing. It's just like Moshe. When God said, go to the rock and speak to the rock. But what did he do? Because of anger. Because the people pushed in. He took the staff and hit the rock. But that was not the instruction. The instruction was what? Speak. Not hit. There is difference between speak and hit. You see, if it were ordinary person or person of a low stature in the spiritual realm, God will forgive. Because what? Because he's a baby, he's young, he doesn't understand what he's doing or not. But not a person of the stature of Moshe. Moshe understood and he recognized, he understand all this things perfectly well. But still yet, he's a human being. He made a mistake through anger. This sage, the Gemara said, he was severely punished because his wife cried. He allowed his wife to shed the tears because he's mixing two things together. There is time for God, your private time, and there's time for the family. You don't mix them together. Even when the person hurt another with the best of intention, he is punished. We read at the beginning of Samuel 1, in the first book of Samuel, the Haftorah for the second day of Rosh Hashanah, that a man named Elkanah had two wives, Peninnah and Hannah. Peninnah had children and Hannah did not. As sages say that Peninnah used to guard Hannah to pray for children by asking questions such as, have you bathed your children for school today? Peninnah had the best of intention. She wanted Hannah to cry from the depth of her heart so that she too would give back. And it worked. Nevertheless, Peninnah was punished severely. As Sage said, Peninnah has a good intention because he wants Hannah to cry more hard before the Lord so that God will give her a baby too. But in what way? He was making mockery of Hannah. He said, She knows Anna doesn't have a child. She said, "Have you given your child a bath for the school today?" That is mockery. She knows that this woman does not have a child yet. But in her mind, in her soul, it might be an intention that we want we want Anna to pray more according to this, to what I said. But Penina was severely punished for making mockery of Anna. And who has not offended his parent? And who has not offended his parent? I repeat. The halachic walk of Adam, which means the life of Adam, writes that even thinking negatively about one's parent is a grave sin, about which the Torah says in Devarim chapter 27 verse 16, "Cursed is one who degrades his father and mother." God does not play with that. It is very, very clear. Who has not offended his parents? And which one among us here, in one time or in our life, has not offended our parents? Maybe the person should raise his hand. Let me see. Say, for the entire of my life, I've never offended my parents. We all did. We all are guilty. We all did, in one form or another. In one way or another, we all did. We offended our parents. But the Torah makes it extremely clear. It's very, very clear in the book of Devarim chapter 27 verse 16. It said, "Cursed is the one who degrades his father and his mother." What does it mean by degrade? Well, you start thinking negatively of your parents. They are your parents. Even though they are bad. For example, that doesn't matter. The fact that that woman give you life, you should be rejoicing. The fact that that woman carried you for 9 months. The fact that that woman breastfeed you. The fact that that woman, when you were weak, he carried you. When you are vulnerable, she defend you. That fact alone is enough for you to keep your mouth shut. But we can see in the world that we live today, many people, many children, they don't care now. They talk to their parents as if they are their parents. They abuse their parents as if they are the one that give birth to their own parents. They talk nonsense of their parents. They don't give a damn. They tell you we're in the free world. But the Torah make it very clear. That is very clear to the Almighty. Because whatever you can do to your parents, how much more to the Almighty that you don't see? Your parents, you see them, but you abuse them. How much more can you do to the Almighty that you don't see? So, you shall do what? Respect your parents. Therefore, conclude Rabbi Zeruel, let us all realize that we have sinned grievously. Let us ask for forgiveness from those we have offended and from the Heavenly Fathers. Then we truly will be able to enter Rosh Hashanah with confidence. Remember that the day of judgment is at hand. That is Yom Kippur. How are we going to enter? We have to enter this day feeling confidence that we are going to triumph. Knowing that the accuser is there. Don't forget, on that day, the accuser is there, going to be accusing people. But when we blow the trumpet, that will put the accuser into confusion. That is the purpose of us blowing the shofar. And that, of course, is one of the key messages of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. We must grab the special opportunity of these holy days to turn away from our mistakes and our bad choices and set ourselves upon a better path. It's about time we stop making excuses and took responsibility for whom and what we are. It's long overdue. Here we are at the threshold of a new year, And it's all about being honest with ourselves. Let us be honest with ourselves. Be honest with yourself and say, what have you done wrong? What have I done wrong? What have been my mistake this year? Now we are going to enter a new year. God, please, I don't want to repeat this mistake. Give me the power, give me the strength to overcome this mistake. Give me the Ruach HaKodesh to be able to overcome this mistake. I don't want to repeat this mistake in this new year that we are going to enter. But I want to do this in the right way. I want to enter this new year with you. And I want you to lead me and direct me throughout the entire year by your power, by your anointing, by your spirit. The degree of our commitment to the Torah and mitzvot will be in direct proportion to how many excuses we make for ourselves in avoiding commitment. The more the excuses, the less the commitment. As Moshe continued his final discourse, he confronted the primary excuses we all use in avoiding commitment and responsibility. Let us show Adonai that we are not indifferent to our wrong action, but sincerely desire greater closeness to the divine. I repeat, let us show Adonai that we are not indifferent to our wrong actions, but sincerely desire greater closeness to Him. We have to let Him know that, please, Holy One, we are not indifferent, that we know our wrong, and we come sincerely before Him to seek redress. To make what is, you go to that woman, you go to that man, you go to that co-worker, you go to that friend that you know that you have sinned. Well, as I said, you have to recognize first that you've done something wrong. A person who does not recognize, how can he go and seek for forgiveness? But when you recognize that you did something wrong against your wife, against your partner, against your husband, against your children, against that man, against that woman, against your co-workers, against your family members, against your neighbor, then you go and seek forgiveness. You go for redress, and they forgive you, then you come before the Lord, and the Lord will forgive you, thereby drawing you close unto Himself. Then you have made a teshuvah. May we all be written and sealed for a blessed year. Amen. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.